Either this is a really good bootleg, or the amazing Yamaguchi Gwen suffers terribly from quality control issues. I'm still not even 100% sure whether this figure is real or not, but we're gonna open it and review it anyway. I ordered mine from Amazon. I know. There's my first mistake, but don't worry, ladies and gents, because I did my homework. Before ordering, I checked the status and the location of the seller, and they had highly praised reviews and lived in Japan. However, in the future, I won't be ordering from them again, and I'll instead go through someone like Ami or Plaza Japan, and I would strongly recommend that you guys do as well. But anyway, let's get started. The box is fantastic. It's actually my favorite design yet. Once again, there's plenty of comic panels wrapping the outside. On the one side, we have a couple of nice images of Gwen right next to her logo. Pretty standard stuff. It's when we move to the back that it starts to get a little bit interesting. We have some notable text panels including, I'm being responsible, Dad. Kill you? Why would I kill you? And most importantly, my all-time favorite line from her, it's Big American Cheeseburger time. What an iconic panel right there. But no, in all seriousness, I love that so much. It definitely adds to the charm of these imported figures, and I just thought that that was kind of funny. Lastly, on the opposite end, we just have Gwen sticking to a wall talking on the phone. I really did like the colors on the box, by the way. I'm not a huge fan of the backdrop piece that we got, though. It kind of just feels a little bit more soulless than the other two. We see Gwen hanging upside down in front of the city, a couple of stills of her just kind of standing there. In the top left, she's kind of crouched down, and then on the right side, she's just like on an electrical pole or something. Obviously, this doesn't matter too much because it's just the backdrop, but it low-key kind of reflects the rest of the figure, and you'll see what I mean as we get there. Here's the instructions that are also included in the box. This is standard for all Yamaguchis. Now let's go ahead and do our snap, and boom, she's all the way out of the box. We're gonna talk about accessories first, because in terms of accessories, this figure kicks ass. In fact, it's one of the few positives that exist with this one. Included is 3 separate head sculpts, a cell phone for some reason, and a nice selection of hands. We will go ahead and do a close-up on these guys. Here are the thwip hands. They come in a pair, and they look great. We got a pair of fully closed fists, and 2 open hands for holding the phone. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. This is the left hand, but if we flip it over, you can see that the fingers are kind of scrunched up in the corner there. Now, if we move over to the right hand, you can see that the fingers are actually all touching. And lastly, for hands, we got this one right here that's making an L shape, but it's only one. So definitely some interesting design choices. I just found it a little bit weird because it definitely limits what you can do in terms of posing, but oh well, it's just a minor gripe. Let's go ahead and go over the head sculpts. Here's the default mask, which funnily enough is the only one that I received that has no QC issues. Fascinating. This one has the left eye squinting. As you can see, there's a chunk of paint sticking off there, and sadly it only gets worse from here. This one has both eyes squinting, and here's a nice little black squiggle on the left side of the mask, yet another QC issue. And lastly, we have the unmask option, which I already wasn't a fan of, but the nice little black paint smear on her face and the dot on her nose definitely seals the deal on my hatred for this sculpt. Moving on to something a little bit more positive, we have a good little set of webbing options. I actually really love these ones this time around. Starting off with the half circle, which has this little barb on the end of it. We got this super twirly one with a little spike. This one is my favorite out of the bunch. And lastly, a very familiar spraying web. But is it the same as Spider-Man's variant? No, it's not. As you can see on the left, Spider-Man's is a little bit more blue and slightly darker colored than Gwen's on the right, and is also a little bit longer than hers as well. Both of the twirl options do not fit on the thwip hands. The only ones that are going to go into there is going to be the spraying web, and as for the other two, they fit into the closed fist hand, which is just like how the Spider-Man functioned. These ones are really tight though, and it took a lot of effort to get them in all the way. As you can see, some of the webbing is still sticking out of her hand slightly and doesn't seat all the way in unless you kind of force it. Here's a close-up on the cell phone. It says voicemail from Dad and has an answer and decline button. Not exactly how voicemail works, at least in America. Maybe it's different there. Who knows? We got another back magnet, but this time it has a little joint on the back so you can hang her from different angles. Very cool. This is definitely an improvement from the Spider-Man. Once again, we got the stick that goes into her back to connect to the stand, and the claw hand, which obviously will grip her and then connect to the stand as well. Now let's get into the figure itself so I can finally explain to you why I thought this was a bootleg and why it's my least favorite figure from Revel Tech so far. Let's start with the paint, and the first thing that I noticed would be this giant splotch of paint built up on her neck, which is super disappointing. It sticks out like a sore thumb, and overall it just sucks to look at. But on the bright side of things, we got an awesome paint job with the webbing this time around. There's hardly any imperfections at all. As you can see under her arm, it looks great and stays inside the lines. Moving up to the hood, it looks just as amazing with no noticeable imperfections. I was surprised that this, out of all things, is what they got right this time around, and it's definitely how all engraved webbing should look. It does get a little bit sloppy under the armpit with this minor paint splotch. Nothing we haven't seen before, as this is a common spot for manufacturers to get a little bit sloppy. Moving on to the other side, the lines slightly overlap the white here. You can't really see it too well. I do need to get better lighting, so I apologize about that. But that's pretty much as bad as it gets for the paint. I did notice a little chunk sticking out of her waist as well. Not sure how that happens, but I'll forgive it, as you can only really find it if you're looking for it. All in all, it doesn't have a bad paint job, so I don't really have any negative feedback in this department. The real issue lies in the feeling of the figure and the changes that they made to the joints. It's honestly hard to explain without the figure in hand, so I'm just going to show you what the joints sound like, and maybe that'll help put it in perspective a little bit. Ooh. Yikes. Yeah, I didn't have this problem with the Spider-Man or the Venom Yamaguchi. Her joints just feel incredibly stiff, and there's no clicking anywhere with this figure. As you know, most Yamaguchis have that clicking sound, at least in the chest area, and this one doesn't have any at all. Ultimately, this is where I decided, okay, this is definitely a bootleg, but shout out to Cat Cole and Pila Monica Swivelman for informing me that they did away with the clicking on reissued Revoltech figures. So with that in mind, I'm about 85% sure at this point that this figure is not a fake, it's just really poorly manufactured. The parts feel cheaper than normal as well. Normally they have an almost rubbery feeling to them, but this time around it's definitely just plasticky. Speaking of spare parts, I want to go over these face swaps real quick, which is easily my favorite part about this entire figure. So you probably already noticed that we got full faces this time, which is awesome. As you can see, it's just the front of the face, and if we flip it over, there's a little peg on the back side. So if we grab Gwen's chin and pull outward on it, the front of her face comes out, and we can line up that peg to her now faceless hole and pop the one we want back on. It's almost like a mashup of the Spider-Man and Venom eye swaps, and I thought that to be a very positive change. We'll go ahead and check out the other two variants that they gave us. Here is the one eye squinting variant, which is probably my favorite mask out of the bunch. It makes her look super cartoony and gives her a bit of animation. Now lastly, I want to throw the maskless one on to see what that would look like, and oh my god, what is going on with her neck? They made her maskless variant very small, so it makes her neck almost look like a giraffe or something. I don't know how this made it to the final design stages, but that is honestly hilarious. Like, I can't even be mad about that just because of how dumb it looks. I popped her neck out to see if maybe it just came up a little bit and I could get it pressed on a little better, but no, that's literally just how it looks. A for effort, I guess. I'm gonna go ahead and put the regular one back on. I hope I never have to see that again. The hands work as well as any other figure would. They pop off and back on, so nothing too surprising in that department. Although they are a little bit loose for my taste, but they do function how they're supposed to, so I can't complain there. Anyway, lastly, I want to briefly mention that the articulation is going to be pretty much exactly the same as Spider-Man, especially in the shoulders. You can still pull them all the way up so that she's kind of shrugging and then all the way back down. However, it does look a lot more conventional than the Spider-Man did, so that's definitely another plus. Although we have very similar articulation points, you definitely don't get the same bendiness as you do with the Spider-Man. It took me quite a while to get her into pose, and even then I felt that each one of these could have looked a lot better and probably would have if I would have done them with the Spider-Man instead. So here is my final thoughts and conclusions with this figure. While making this video, Yamaguchi Gwen has grown on me immensely, and I've liked it a little bit more with each passing second, but that doesn't change the fact that Revoltech has really lost their grip on quality control, and it's really sad to see it play out like this. It is easily the cheapest feeling figure that I have in my collection of Revoltech so far, but it's definitely not the worst thing that I've purchased in this price range. We did get a lot of versatility and some pretty good articulation for the price, so objectively it is a good deal, even if it turns out that this is a bootleg, which by the way, I'm still not 100% sure about. What do you guys think? Do you have Gwen, and if so, did you have a similar experience, or did I just get unlucky? I want to thank everybody that helped me gather information for this video, and I want to thank you specifically for watching the video all the way to the end. If you enjoyed, be sure to show support by hitting that like button and subscribing. I upload every Saturday, so be sure to tune in next week, and I'll see you there. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, stay awesome.